Hi there, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the Your Mind, Body, Life podcast. If you are watching this streaming live right now, you are probably wondering, what on earth is Gretchen doing on my screen again? I just saw her in a Facebook Live on my networking group, on her Facebook group, on our business pages, everything else. Well, here's the deal, my friends. I had actually written out an outline to go ahead and start recording this podcast and to live stream it a few days ago. And then some amazing small business leaders in my community, Jennifer Farrar and Danny Farrar, launched a very important cause that is increasingly coming, it seems minute by minute, close to my heart, called the um, Bear the Burden Coalition. And as a small business owner alongside my husband, as someone who has felt the impact both as, on a personal level, as a family person and everything else, it really tugged at my heartstrings. So I just went live not too long ago addressing that. I was tempted to not go ahead and record my own podcast, which was scheduled to be recorded today. I was tempted to not live stream it because I thought, man, you guys are getting your full of me. Then I decided, you know what? I need to stick on the plan no matter what. So before going into today's topic, which is winterizing your life, I'm going to go ahead and give a plug. And by the way, none of these people are paying for sponsorship on the podcast or anything like that. They are just people who have made it possible for me to do it anyway. First and foremost, my husband, Elon Eisenberg. I am in our very newly renovated Sanctuary Lane studio. He himself, literally stone by stone, they are like, I had to turn around. He laid each of those one at a time, dead serious. He glued them, he cut them to size, he did it himself. He's amazing. Across from me is his sound area where he does mastering and production work and everything. So I want to give a shout out to Elon with Sanctuary Lane Sound Studio because he is the reason my sound is getting better and better. Speaking of sound, I'm losing my voice. He's the reason I have a better mic. He is the reason I have a better place to create better sound. He's the reason the next time it's going to sound better. FYI, he didn't want me to quite record now. He wanted to set things up a little bit differently, and I opted for things to be a little less perfect so I could just get it done because I have so much to do. So anyway, shout out to Sanctuary Lane Sound Studio. Whether you have music, voiceover work, other recording, production work you need done, if you have something that was done and you're not liking the quality of the sound, whether it needs to be cleaned up and to sound better or maybe redone altogether, great resource there. I also want to give a huge shout out to Shay Brown, the happy entrepreneur. I would not be doing this podcast at all if it wasn't for him, because frankly, for nearly 2 years, I've been talking about doing a podcast. I've talked to friends, I've asked questions, but I never took the leap. And Shay got on a call with me and literally said, do it today. And that was several weeks back, a few months ago by now. And I did it. I was scared. I was stumbling on my words and everything else. He agreed to be my very first interviewee. I felt a little awkward doing it, but I wouldn't have done it at all. And I'm so thankful for Shay. If you are an entrepreneur that is really wanting some guidance and help, I would strongly recommend reaching out to Shay Brown. I met Shay Brown through my mastermind group run. Eric Swanson is a phenomenal public speaker who not only put me in touch with amazing other public speakers, I'm also in his mastermind group, and the professionals in there, they have personally encouraged me through some difficult times. I met most of them, I think I was still bedridden. I'd have to ask Eric that. I'm pretty sure it was right after I had my hip surgery and I couldn't quite sit yet. I was still in bed. But I wanted to thank Eric for helping guide me and finding a voice and putting amazing people to collaborate with. If you have never been a part of a mastermind group and you have wondered what one is about, go ahead and save your money and join one that isn't just going to take your money, but is going to put you together with people that actually are giving back. And I mean, guys, like John and Eric, when they are running this, they keep us on point. We have to come ready with, this is who I am, this is what I do, this is what I need. It's sort of like this amazing round table of professionals saying, oh, you have this. Well, how about, let me connect you to my web person, or this, or have you considered doing that? Have you tried that? How about this for your accountability? Phenomenal mastermind group. I have visited others, and frankly, too many were a waste of time and were people pitching products rather than collaborating. So the Habitude Warrior Mastermind is the place to go. Excuse me. I also want to shout out Miss Melissa Poksa. She owns Queen Mom Boutique. I'm actually wearing her shirt, which I bought last fall. It is gorgeous. It is pretty. It is colorful. It is comfy. And I can't wait to see more things coming out of her boutique. She was actually the winner of Mrs. International the first year I competed on an international stage. This beautiful, statuesque, amazing advocate for children is phenomenal. So anyway, I wanted to plug those small businesses first. If you are a small business person and you would like a plug on my podcast, reach out to me and let's see how we can make that happen. Now, I'm going to go ahead and fast forward. I want to talk about winterizing your life. The first time I ever heard winterize anything was some commercial about winterizing your car. I'm going to be straight up honest. I am one of those people who, up until I married my husband, really, I would see the red light telling me I need to check my engine, and it could have been like 12,000 miles since I changed my oil or had my tires looked at or anything else. I was always like really close to some kind of automobile emergency, because I was not the person who was thinking of winterizing her vehicle or summerizing it or anything else. Winterizing your HVAC system, preparing all your vents and your ductwork for the upcoming cold weather months, clearing out the leaves if the fall dropped a bunch in. We know this about our homes and about our vehicles, but what about your life? Here's what made me decide on calling it this topic. First of all, as I said, I've always been one of those people who didn't really plan ahead very well for the disaster waiting around the corner with my vehicle if I didn't take care of it, or what might happen with my gutters if I didn't clean them, or whatever it is that was needed. And I know a lot of us tend to do that with our life. We can very easily get caught up in the day-to-day moments, the minute-by-minute crises, and not plan ahead for the difficulty that is sure to come. Frankly, I'm one of those people who, if you were going to ask me what my favorite season is, winter is never going to top the list, which is kind of funny since Christmas is my favorite holiday. But anyway, I liked Christmas when I lived in Hawaii when I was a military wife because it was warm. So that would be like the best of both worlds. I got Christmas and summer. But I don't like cold weather. I feel a little bit more bluesy when it's dark early in the day. Don't like the cold weather blowing in my ears, that type of thing. The nostalgic motherhood memories have me remembering the summer memories with my children a little bit more than the winter ones. So I thought, what could I do today? How can I encourage my listeners today to start winterizing their lives? This is for those of you, well, it is for all of you, but I'm going to especially talk to those of you who really struggle during the upcoming holiday season. Maybe you're homesick. Maybe you have lost someone who's passed away, and it's going to be a tough season. Perhaps you live in an area where mandates are a lot more restrictive than they once were, and that is difficult for you. Whatever it is that you might be going through, or you feel like you might be going through, it's possible, it's likely even that you're already feeling angst about it. So let's go ahead and have the discussion, right? Winterizing your life. What would that mean for most of us? Well, we could go into a ton of areas of our lives because as human beings, our lives are filled with people and responsibilities and hobbies and interests and passions, priorities, needs, everything else. Lives are complex because humans are complex. We are this beautiful, amazing gift to the world that can also be pain in the butt, evil, and everything else. Life, humanity, everything is complex. So heading into a season where it's going to be colder, where you may not be able to get out as much, it's time to go ahead and start thinking about it. Now, let's go ahead and talk about what it can include. Let's see, I'm going to go ahead and skip on over to, sorry, I'm figuring this all out here. Here we go. I'm sorry, you see the little ticker at the bottom? This is the first time I'm using it. Those of you who end up listening to my podcast later and you're not watching it, you're probably wondering why I just stumbled over my words. I kept clicking back and forth between my little banners that I prepared a few days ago to prepare for the podcast. So the areas of our lives that we are going to focus on the most are our home, our relationships, and what I'm going to call our whole self. I am picking these areas because these are three main areas that kind of encompass all of those micro-sized parts of our life. If we were going to break our lives into micro and macro areas, I would say your home life might be considered a macro area of your life, and then you could break it down into tiny things like how tidy are you? How do you use your space? Do you have clutter? Do you have what's the temperature? That sort of thing. What is the air quality? Those would be the micro things. We're going to focus a little bit more on the macro, and you could break that down in whatever way you need to based on what you hear here. Your relationships. We are looking at the macro size of the relationships for the purpose of time in the podcast, but we want to winterize our relationships. If you've ever had what we call a snowmageddon, it was about 2009. My husband might have to correct me on the timing, but massive winter storm. We got over 50 inches of rain. I believe it was 52 inches of rain within about 2 days. This Cajun girl was not loving it. We were stuck inside quite a bit. As a matter of fact, there were times that opening the door was quite tricky. Winterizing the relationships would have been really good because this chick right here was quite the snappy one and was pretty, let's just put this nicely. I wasn't as nice as I could be to my husband while I was trapped inside for days and days at a time. I had 5 younger kids and I only had so much bandwidth because frankly, I didn't winterize the relationships or my home for that matter. And now we're going to talk about our whole self. That will include your health, your spiritual life, your purpose, what's going on, your whole self. So we're going to break that down a little bit at a time in this podcast. And we're going to go ahead and cover those things. And my hope is that by the time you have finished listening to the podcast, whether you're watching it live now, you listen later on the podcast, which by the way, you could listen on Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google Podcast, Breaker. There's a handful others. I can post those if you need. I'm very blessed that the podcast is there. So anyway, let's go winterize our life. You are going to winterize your home. You are going to winterize your relationships. You're going to winterize your whole self. And I promise, friends, it's not that hard. It's not simple, but it's not that hard. Yeah, I don't know if I'm saying that backwards or not. You can correct me if you want. So what I mean is the steps you're going to take to winterize these areas of your life, they're not difficult to accomplish. I don't want to oversimplify it because some things may be complex. For example, relationships might be the toughest part. You may have to put a little more thought into how you're going to do that. Anyway, so I'm actually going to start on what I think is actually the first thing is to make sure that your home, so we're going to go and talk about that. We're going to talk about your home first. As you winterize your home, we want to think about some main areas. The first area is going to be an area where you can get some space to yourself. If you live in a studio apartment, maybe you're even a teenager listening to this and that's just your bedroom, whatever that is. I'm going to try to encourage you to make sure that place where you can get away to pray, to meditate, to think, to just relax, to read a book, whatever that is, someplace that isn't just your bed. Now, college age young people, teenagers that might be listening to this, I know that your bedroom might be limited in space, but even like a small beanbag chair, something else, something where you're not just in bed all the time. The reason is staying in bed for extended periods can lead to depression, can encourage just you to feel less physically fit. I want you to have a space away. If your home is large enough, it could be another room in the house or another part of a room in the house. Some people will create like a little reading nook for their kids or for their spouse or something like that, like in a corner of an office or a bedroom or something like that. For my husband, it's actually the room I'm in right now. By the way, thanks, Elon. He's not in here, but I'm hoping he'll listen. It's his studio. This is where he's his most creative, and being an artist, someone who sings, produces, writes, records, and all of that. He needs his space to be very pleasant, open. He needs his colors to be nice. He needs it where he's not going to be distracted by the dog running around and everything else. And he needs to have the area he's in free of clutter. So whenever you're looking at your space, whatever that's going to be, it could be like my husband, like a large area like this where he actually does conduct work in and see clients and that sort of thing, but where he also has a lot of alone time to think. He's very cautious to make sure he doesn't leave like dishes here if he's had some drink or brought a snack in here. He doesn't leave garbage around or that sort of thing. Don't allow your space to be a clutter keeper. Moms, I'm going to talk to you because I have been guilty of this. And when I first started talking about it years ago, friends would say something and they were like, "Oh, you too," and that sort of thing. And be like, "Yeah, me too." And now I've been talking about this for like 20 something years. And it seems like without fail, we moms are the worst at keeping clutter in our personal areas. I get it. You're sometimes next to your bed or your office. It becomes the catch-all for the clothes your kids outgrew, for the socks that you can't find the match to, for that thing someone gave you, but you really didn't want. You didn't know how to tell them no, and you don't know what to do with it. So maybe it goes next to your bed, or it goes into another area that otherwise could be just a peaceful place to be. Whatever. And I know some others do it too, but moms, I'm talking to you because I think we are potentially the guiltiest parties in this. And maybe it's our desire to take care of people, our desire to please others, to be a blessing to our children and our spouses, that we take on everybody's crap and we put it in our space. So I want to discourage you from doing that right now. So to get in your place where you can get away, to pray, to meditate, to think, to read, relax, all of those things is going to require you to get as clutter-free as possible. If you're someone who doesn't like to dust, go ahead and get rid of some of the knickknacks, put them away, store them. If they really have sentimental meaning and you just can't tear away from them, package them up, put them away, do it right away so you don't keep putting it off. Okay. And now you can bring some things in. Don't mistake my message or misinterpret my message of getting everything out to say you can't bring anything in. There are some things I would actually encourage you to bring in. One, a cozy blanket or a sweater or something that if you are writing, if you're reading, if you just want to relax and snuggle up in a quiet place with your dog, if you want to meditate, if it's a little chilly. If you're like me, I love a soft, cozy blanket to cuddle up under when I'm reading and praying and that sort of thing. Go ahead and have that ready. Perhaps a nice plant, something that keep that air nice and clean, that adds some dimension to the room without adding a lot of clutter. You won't have room for any plants if you have too much clutter, that type of thing. Another thing I want you to make sure you have in that room, whatever that area is, your place to get away, to whatever it is that you need to do in that space. If you have windows, make sure that whatever curtains or shades you have, that they are not letting in, you're going to have that fine line between too much and too little light. So I'll give you an example here. My guest room is my place to get away. It's also my office. I didn't realize how much I would use the room until I had hip surgery. And it's just a peaceful place for me to be, where I can be alone with my thoughts, where I can write letters, where I can write, because I love to write, where I can lay out outlines for these podcasts and that sort of thing. Anyway, I realized pretty early on, once I set the room up, that as much as I like the colors of my curtains, they let in too much light. And I find that if I'm on video in them, like I am right now with you guys in my husband's studio, that the pattern is a bit distracting. So anyway, I know that sounds like a really like a silly thing to make a big issue of, but not liking your curtains and your blinds or having too much or too little light can make that place that that you intend to be a place where you want to get away, it can make it where you don't want to be in there. If it's dark and dreary during the winter months where the days are already getting darker and, darker earlier in the day, we don't want it to be more dark. And we also don't want so much light let in that it feels like you got to put your sunglasses on every time you face the windows. So I think that's an important aspect of your windows, if you have windows. And then lighting. I can tell you in my husband's studio right now, like right to my right, which probably looks like your left if this is flipped me mirror image. I have a lot of options for really comfortable, pleasant light in this room because it's a studio. It's intended to do that for me. But you want your light to be adequate for the purposes that you need it for. Not everyone is using their place to get away as also doubling up as a studio. But if you are, you want your lighting to be nice. You want it to not be so harsh that, or you want it to be good for reading and that type of thing. So let's go ahead and make sure there's no clutter, that what you bring in is making your room more pleasant and not less pleasant. And both your source of lighting and your windows are adequate for what you need. Okay. Doing those things is going to make that so that it's a place that you can really unwind and get away. You're going to need that if we have a really crappy winter or if mandates wherever you live are keeping you more and more isolated. Okay. For all of you people who live alone, I know I've got quite a few single people in my circle. I wouldn't know what that's like. It seems when I was single, I was a single mom. When I was on my own per se, I was in the Air Force with a roommate. So I feel like I've always lived with someone. But I have been told by my friends who live alone that some of them have a hard time, not just like having a place that is made that's intended to be their place to just unwind. So let's go ahead and make sure that whatever your lifestyle looks like, that you're giving yourself that in your home. Now, here we go. The personal trainer in me wanted to make this first, but the mom and the wife and the creative writing person, the communicator knew that I needed to focus on that quiet place to get away first. So anyway, when it comes to nutrition coaching, one reason that I get over and over again of why my clients don't prepare healthy meals, why they order out more often, why they don't prepare a few meals ahead, if that might be beneficial to them, is because they don't have space to store it or prepare it. So just like we talked about getting rid of that clutter and managing your clutter in the other areas of your home, also let's do that in your kitchen. It's been about a month or so now. I got rid of so many coffee cups. We had like all the matching plates and the bowls and everything else. I was decluttering my kitchen, and I found that I kind of have a little bit of an emotional attachment to all of these gifted mugs that I have, and there are a lot of them. And I thought, you know what? I don't need all my mugs to match. As a matter of fact, when guests come over, I'm finding they kind of like having the little mismatched mugs because some of them have a little story, some of them have like a Bible verse, some of them have a funny message. There's one that my daughter gave me. When it gets hot, it says something about my boobs. I try to make sure I don't give that to a guest. I can't believe I just put that in my podcast. I'm not even going to take it out. But anyway, I knew that I had to get rid of all like the matchy mugs, because if I kept everything, I would just keep having clutter and I'd run out of space to put things like water bottle, like, reusable water bottles, shaker bottles that I might make like I might pour a protein shake in or something like that. Make sure that if you don't have room for something, get rid of it. I know that sounds nuts, but true. Look through everything. If you are like I have been for way too many years, up until recently, where every time I would open my cabinets and reach for something, stuff's falling over all over the place, it's going to be a lot less pleasant to prepare healthy meals, because it's not pleasant to have a bunch of healthy ingredients all over the place and be reaching around all the clutter or not knowing where things are. Just get rid of the stuff. Go through your spice cabinet, get rid of stuff. Most of you like that have like I guess you call it a typical kitchen, a normal kitchen. Unless you're single, and I'm not dogging on people saying, I'm just saying our kitchens probably look different because we have prepared food for either just ourselves or for a multitude of people. Get rid of old spices, get rid of all of the stuff. Even if food is not gone bad, but you know in your heart you picked it up as an impulse buy, you're not going to eat it, maybe not the healthiest thing for you. We have food banks that need that food. Go ahead and get it there. Get rid of the clutter. Make room in your fridge, in your pantry, on your counters to prepare healthy food. That's going to be a way to winterize your kitchen and set yourself up for success rather than for failure when it comes to like the weight gain that people typically gain in the winter. Every year, every single year since I first became a trainer 15 years ago. Actually, since before that, I've been active in fitness since I was about, like really active since I was 17, 18 years old when I was in the Air Force. But every gym I've ever gone to, whether I was a member or a trainer, that January 1st through like 14th roll around, people join, they join. And they absolutely have good intentions, but the winter catches up with them, life catches up. And more often than not, if you end up stuck inside a lot, might be gaining weight rather than losing it. So I want you to winterize your kitchen so that you are set up for success when it comes to your nutrition. Just keeping it real with you guys. All right. So I didn't add this in. I wanted to go ahead and put a different little ticker up here, and I totally didn't. So there's another area of your home that I can't believe I didn't put in my little outline, but I'm going to go ahead and share that right now. And that is creating a place to exercise in your home. So going through the home, we're talking about your personal space. We've gone and talked about your kitchen, and now you need a place to exercise. Okay. Whether you live in a small studio apartment, maybe you are one of those teenagers or college kids and you're like, you have just a bedroom. That's okay. Keep enough clean space so that you can move your full body. I actually will encourage you this way. If let's say you're sharing an apartment with someone, maybe you're renting a room, you're like a young medical student and you're renting a room in an apartment, you don't have free access to the whole house. I know there are some of you out there. My daughter was one of those for a while. Or maybe you're a high schooler or a college student and you're listening to this, you're watching this stream, you're like, all I got is my bedroom. I don't really have more personal space. I don't have use of the entire home or something like that. So I want you to try to create in yourself space in your room. And what you'll do to make sure you can actually do certain full body workouts is literally make sure you have a clear spot on your floor. I want you to lie down on your back, extend your arms like straight up overhead and point your toes and literally like kind of do like you're making like, what do you call them? Like snow angels. And if you are bumping into things with your hands and your feet, I need you to clear that amount of area out for yourself so that you could do things like planks, so that you could do things like Spider-Man planks, so that you can do body weight squats, so that maybe you can have a stability ball and do some workouts with that. So you don't need a lot of space, but you want enough space that actually fits your body and that type of thing. So winterizing your home is also going to include a place to exercise. Now let's go ahead and expand that to maybe you are like a mom or a dad who's at home and you have kids at home and you can't really like exercise away from them. Maybe you don't have a basement to get to like we do, or you just all of your spaces are filled. In all likelihood, like your living room or a study is going to be the place. So at minimum, I want you to do the same thing I recommended for those who might be exercising in like their bedroom, which is lie down on your back, extend your hands overhead, point your toes, and do like with your hands and legs, like you're making snow angels, to make sure that you have an area where you can actually move your entire body, both static movement and in motion or dynamic movement. And imagine if you had like a stability ball, that's those large, like blow up exercise balls, or some small equipment that you can actually work with. And an area that size will make that possible for you. Now, I feel really blessed because I have a pretty large room in my basement that fits a lot more equipment and I have a lot more access to things. So I don't think you could have too much equipment unless you're just not going to use the equipment. I know some of us have been guilty of that, but look, let's plan on using it. If you have it, Don't sell it. Don't give it away. Commit to using it. I'll be your accountability buddy if you need me to, okay? Don't get rid of the equipment. Commit to using it. Now, in your workout area, here's another one. I'm going to get on to you men and women here. So many people use their Peloton bikes like to hold their, like to dry their bras and like hang their pants on or throw a jacket on. Quit doing that. The thing cost you over $2,000. Use it. And no, you didn't overspend because it's a commercial quality bike. And believe me, those suckers are expensive. I know, because I was a cycling instructor at one point in time. So use the bike if you got it, but keep the area around it nice and tidy, just like we talked about your other areas. Now, if you have room, I'm going to encourage you to have maybe a piece of cardio equipment if you live in an area where maybe you don't have like access to maybe a community facility, or you don't go to a gym. Maybe the gyms might get closed down, or there are closed down where you are, and your home workout area is going to be even more important than ever right now. Remember, we're winterizing our lives right now. Okay. So I'm going to skip on over that. I think I just skipped this too much. Okay. No, I didn't. Okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and recommend just a little bit of equipment. I'm going to keep it as inexpensive as possible, something that almost everyone can afford. Even I could. Okay. So let's start with a stability ball. Some people call them yoga balls. Some people call them exercise balls. I call them stability balls. I always tell this to all of my ladies who are like me, under 5'5". I have been guilty twice, and I will never be guilty of doing it again. A lot of these stability balls come in different sizes, like depending on the brand. And too many of these brands recommend that those of us who are like 5'4" and under to go down to a very small stability ball. And I feel like it should be called like the anti-stability ball, because when we sit on it and we're actually like, I mean, even my friends who are 4'10" have told me this. They feel like their knees are like practically in their chest and that sort of thing. So for most adults, certainly not all, for most adults, if the ball options you have for the brands you are looking at have a small size that says it's like for like under 5'4" or under 5'3" or something, go ahead and size up, because you are going to be more stable on that ball when you are doing other exercises. Maybe those are okay if you're just sitting on them and doing certain exercises, but if you're actually going to sit on the ball and use resistance bands, dumbbells, or doing some other movements, those little ones are going to be too small. And those of you who are taller, go ahead and size up. Okay. I know there's going to be someone who's like, you know, somewhere between like 5'11" and 6'7", and you're trying to sit on a medium ball and you're wondering why you're feeling like you're eating your knees while you're trying to move. Go ahead and size up. Okay. Stability ball is very versatile. There's a lot we could do on it for your full body health. I also recommend sliders. Now, if you're wondering what sliders are, it's kind of hard to describe it without showing them to you. I don't know why I didn't bring them. Well, I know why, because I couldn't bring it all here. I'm in a studio. I'm in my husband's recording studio, not my workout room. If ever you have had furniture sliders, these little, like, they're plastic on one side and foam on the other to move heavy piece of furniture across so you don't damage your floors. They're really the same thing. They're marketed for exercise. In a lot of cases, you actually can use the exercise sliders unless you're like massive. I have a couple of sets that I bought at Walmart years ago. It's, unless you're using them like commercial use, you probably don't ever have to replace them. It's rare, that type of thing. Now, I also recommend mini bands. I would recommend having 2 to 3 different forms of resistance, everything from your lightest resistance to a heavier resistance. I like to mix up having the light, medium, and high resistance. If you are only going to get one for starters. Actually, these days, I think it's almost hard to just get one. They usually come in a set of 2 or 3. But if you were only going to get one, if you have never been exercising and you're a very petite female with maybe a small muscle and bone frame, go ahead and get the lightest resistance. Everyone else, go ahead and get the medium resistance, and then you can go up and down from there. I have seen sets even at our local CVS where you can get a set of 3 that have a light, medium, and heavy resistance. Go for that. It's more bang for your buck. You get a lot more use out of it. So the resistance bands are, to me, they're a staple. I need to have them for what I want to accomplish. I feel like I'm not getting full workouts in if I don't include them in my workouts a few times a week. I use them not just for warm up and movement. I use them for some strengthening of my hips and glutes. So I said sliders, stability ball, the mini bands, and now resistance tubing. That's going to be the other thing I recommend. Resistance tubing is this rubberized tube. They also come in mini resistances, kind of like those mini bands. And they usually have plastic handles, though not always. I prefer to use the handles. You don't have to spend a ton of money on them. I wish I could remember. I wish I'd thought to share a link in this, but I know I've seen some that, like on Amazon, they actually make some resistance bands that can attach to like the top of a doorway. And I hear a lot of people are loving those. I like the idea of those a lot. If you want to have even a little more versatility to those. I actually wrap mine around like the bottom of my Peloton, my stair banisters, heavy furniture. I'll put them on some body bars and things like that to add variety to my workouts and stuff like that. But anyway, the pieces of equipment that I've just recommended, those 4 pieces of equipment, the reason I'm recommending them is number one, they don't take up much space. And I'm wanting you to winterize your home. I'm not wanting you to like fill your home with a bunch of crap. Not everyone, I'm not even sure most people have space to fit a lot of exercise equipment. That's just going to depend on what your living situation looks like. So I wanted to keep in mind, like in my head, I'm thinking, what is the perfect type of equipment to have that something can be stuffed in a closet, pushed into a corner of a room or something like that. So once again, I'll repeat it one more time so that you don't have to rewind in the podcast or go back on the live feed. We're looking at no particular order. I'm like totally going off the top of my head. Sliders, resistance bands, like resistance tubing, mini bands, and a stability ball. Now, if you want to get yourself a bonus something and you have a little bit more room and you have some wiggle room in your finances, I'm going to recommend both a moderate weight of dumbbells and a very light set of dumbbells. By light, I mean like 1 to 3 pounds. And by moderate, that's really going to depend a little bit on size, strength, gender. So moderate for some females is going to be as little as 5 pounds and as much as like 10 to 12. And for most of my guys, I know it's not always the case, but we're looking at like 10 or 12 up to maybe 20s. You could get all the size dumbbells you want. If you're a starter working out, you've never worked out before, you've never lifted weights before, I think you could probably stop at around 25 pounds for a beginning, like start as little as 1 up to 25 pounds if you have room for a lot. And then I also recommend, it's the only brand thing I'm actually recommending. Mark Liebert's this guy. I met him at a fitness conference years ago, and I really like the equalizer bars, doing body weight exercise. I like being able to change my hand positions to both challenge me and also protect my wrist for push-ups, to do reverse push or to do like a body weight rowing, to do dips. There's so many options for body weight exercise with the equalizer bars. And once again, they don't take up very much room. If you want more recommendations for some workout equipment, I'm not making any money on recommending any of this stuff. Feel free to reach out. Frankly, if I was making money, I'd ask you to reach out too. but anyway, if you want to build a sort of a workout area, especially because winter's coming and maybe there have been restrictions in your area, you want to make sure you have plenty of opportunity and space and equipment, everything to work out, feel free to reach out. So that was my last side of dealing with winterizing our home. All right, so now I want to go ahead and talk about relationships, because we want to winterize our relationships. Does that sound crazy to you guys? Like winterizing your relationships? By the way, if any of you are writing comments as I'm live streaming and I don't comment, please forgive me. I will go back and respond when I am done recording. I'm just not responding right now during the live recording because I'm recording it for my podcast. That being said, I am going to be seeing them all. I'm not ignoring you or anything else. Okay, so let's go back. We want to winterize our relationships. And here's what I mean by that. There is a reason that people, like comedians, joke about it, or people kind of fret about it, like having Thanksgiving with relatives or traveling to see people for the holidays. A lot of times it's because core relationships are broken. Maybe someone, maybe a grandparent or a parent did or said something very, very hurtful. Maybe there's a toxic person in your family and you love them, but there's a toxicity and you can't work around it. It's time to address that, to make some decisions. You could do that now before the holidays come, before the cold winter months come, before those difficult times come. Okay, these are the relationships. This is what they look like. These are the boundaries that maybe I need to set before the holidays hit. Those are important things to look at. Who are my core relationships? You may have never heard that phrase core relationship before. You may have a different idea of what it is than others do. So I'm going to go ahead and give you my interpretation of what that is. And feel free to comment if you're watching it live, to send me a message, to leave feedback on the podcast, everything else. So my core relationships, if you're watching the video, you see like I'm going to hold my fist here. Pretty ring, showing my husband ring he gave me. Okay. So I got my fist up and that's representing me. And I'm like using my hand, my other hand is like layering a distance from me. I'm going to be that core. It's me and myself, my physical self, my spiritual, emotional self. Whoever has the closest proximity to me physically, even if they're not a spouse or a child or a parent, it could be a roommate, someone that I'm going to spend a ton of time with. Let's say you have a snowmageddon or a hurricane or something like that, and you're locked inside with that person. We don't want that. We don't want that to be unhealthy in any ways that we have control over. Now, it could be, look, if you have a roommate and the person's a jerk, you can't change that they're a jerk, but you can change how and if you respond to jerk behavior, right? So this is the time before the cold winter months, before the holidays, everything, to decide, okay, like I'll just make up a story off the top of my head. Maybe you have a roommate that always like eats your food, right? Like maybe you have an agreement that their food's on this shelf, yours on that shelf, and that roommate always eats your food and just really gets under your skin. Now's the time to go ahead and have a conversation about it. Not an attacking one, not one that's like, telling them off or a kind of whatever it is you do, not being passive aggressive to them, passing them in the hallway, slamming in a door, whatever that is. Have a talk about it. It is possible your roommate is struggling with something financially a little bit more than they're letting on. And I have been guilty of that in the past, guys, not as a roommate, because I haven't had like a roommate since I've been in the Air Force, but I've had times where I've been like in financial need, and it was very hard to tell people how much need I had. And I mean, I've heard that from other people that have roommates. They're like, I was so freaking hungry. And I know it was her mac and cheese, but I was so hungry. Have the talk with that roommate. Ask them, how are things going? Say, hey, you know what? I know you really like when I bring mac and cheese home. How about I just like buy in bulk and we like split the cost or something? Have a relationship with the roommate. Okay, so I'm going there first because I know that is the situation some of you are in. It's always easy for me to forget what it's like for others who don't live the way I do. And now let's go ahead and go back with your spouse, your children, your parents, your siblings. For those that you have relationships with, this is a really good time to start fostering those. If you have good relationships, some questions could be like, what can I do to make it great? If there are people who are so toxic that actually engaging with them in a relationship manner isn't helpful, but you might actually be seeing them during the holidays, it's time to go ahead and start deciding how you're going to handle that and talk to someone else in your core relationship group so that you kind of have gentle relationship backup. Maybe it's steering someone away from you if they are toxic and have a tendency to be volatile or something like that. Or maybe they have hurt you in some kind of way and it's just too painful. It's time to go ahead and deal with it and address it now. So that's going to be in our core relationships. Now, here's something that I think a lot of us might have a hard time dealing with. And we're winterizing our relationships. We're going to have a long season ahead. We might be locked in. We want to live healthy. And part of being healthy is being healthy, like deep here, like in our hearts, in our minds. So it could be, maybe there's a former lover. Maybe it's an ex-spouse. Maybe it's an old friend. Maybe there's someone that you actually need to reconcile with. Like, there could be someone that you have hurt and you know that you've done or said something that was hurtful to them. And Maybe there was a time that you tried to justify being the jerk, kind of like the jerk roommate. Um, you know, just because the other person was being awful to you at one point in time, maybe they have changed. Maybe it was just an incident or whatever it is. Is there a way to reconcile? If you were just wrong, is it possible that you could give them the gift of apologizing? I could tell you, like, I'm just going to use scenarios that I know are very real because we live in this world full of people that are broken and feel hurt and things like that. Um, a lot of times people go through certain types of very deep hurts, and they have been hurt so deeply that the scars are almost feel as bad as the initial wounds. Have you ever had like a physical scar, and even though it's a scar, if you like rub it, it feels kind of funky, not so good, or you don't like people to touch that scar because it kind of tingles or burns or just doesn't feel right? Or maybe the skin around that area is really thin and it's very easy to tear it. Well, wounds that we can cause people, even people, maybe we're just not in a relationship with them right now, but it's possible that we've caused wounds to people, and we can winterize their soul too by apologizing. In an extreme, it could be a spouse that cheated on a former spouse or a former lover. It could be a sibling that like stole money or didn't pay a sibling back, and they know they can't, but they also know that they need to apologize. It could be that like in the heat of all of this election crap that you told someone off and you know you were wrong, but you did it anyway. Um, Maybe like there was a part of you at the time that thought, oh, that person's a jackass and they always deserve it. And every, like, you tell yourself why it was okay to be less than humane to a person. This is a great time to try to reconcile. You may never get the relationship back. It may be that you're not supposed to get the relationship back, but you can do your part to reconciling, to winterize your heart, and even help them for theirs. What a blessing you could be giving to someone. Um, you know, maybe your former spouse or the mother or father of your children is still, maybe they feel jaded because of that cheating or because of the way you treated them. And maybe just going back and saying, you know what? I know it's all over in its history, but I want you to know I'm really sorry that I treated you this way or that I did that. You could be giving someone the gift of closure that they need so that they can move on and have healthier relationships, or so that they could trust people more or something like that. So when I'm talking about like winterizing your life, I can't just talk about relationships like the core relationships, because the truth is, if we don't address when we are wrong, when the need to be the reconciler, the one to apologize and that sort of thing, when that's on us, it will impact our other relationships as well. Okay. So now I'm going into something kind of cool, which I've been thinking about more and more. Have you ever done like some like spring cleaning of your friends? Like I've done it in my friends list on Facebook sometimes, where I'll go and I'm like, I don't know why I friended that person. I don't know that person. It looks like that's just some guy that like friended 100 women that, that are brunette or something like that. I'm going to unfriend him. Like I might go do some spring cleaning on like my social media following or something like that. We might have to do some spring cleaning with our friendships. Maybe there are people we've kind of allowed into our inner circle that it's not healthy for them to stay in our inner circle. It could be that they were our neighbors and they just happened to be convenient years ago, but over time, maybe that's the person that's always going like, woe is me, and never, how are you? Right? That's not a very healthy relationship. And maybe that person or those people have been in your inner circle, and you need to create a new inner circle, or you need to kind of gently edge them out without being mean. And then there's a beautiful thing. Sometimes when we're becoming more self-aware, we will find, or we'll start to realize, that there are people that we can invite into our inner circle who haven't been in our inner circle, but they deserve a place there. Now, how do you know? Like, how can I know if these people that I don't know why I just did that. I need to hide that. I need to show this one. Sorry, I'm still learning how to use this ticker thing on StreamYard, if you guys are watching, like I made an outline of all of my little talking points and I have notes off to the side. So those of you who are listening on the podcast, you don't know what I'm talking about unless you watched it as well. But I'm live streaming in and it's using my webcam. I got my mic and I have this whole thing set up and people who are watching can kind of see my talking points. And I keep clicking the wrong thing from time to time. So anyway, let's go ahead and ask this really important question. Are there people in my life that I can add to my inner circle? Or are there people that should not be in my inner circle? It could be that someone you once thought was a best friend and everything else, with time, you realize they gossip about you or they talk about your children or they talk about your husband. And now, as years pass, you just kind of feel icky when you're with them. That's probably someone that doesn't deserve a spot in your inner circle. It could be like somehow you guys are just all married in the same family and you just ended up there and you talk frequently, but there, you might have like your spidey senses going off that's saying something's not right with this relationship. It might not even be that they're not a great person. You're not a great person. You just might not be great for being in each other's inner circle. And that's okay too. I've actually talked to, I have a friend who she's always like, oh, I got to go to my in-laws for Thanksgiving. And I'm like, is that bad? And she's like, I don't know. I just hate it there. Like she actually loves her in-laws. She enjoys them, but she doesn't enjoy spending like a ton of time with them. They have a lot of different interests. She doesn't feel she can like share who she is in this way and that sort of thing. By the way, I'm thankful. I've got a phenomenal mother-in-law and she and I are pretty close. So, so I don't have that problem. But anyway, but I'm just giving examples of sometimes people are in your inner circle and it's not a good fit or they just don't deserve to be there. And just know, just because someone has always been a confidant does not mean that they should always remain a confidant. And you're going to know that when you feel yourself pulling away, when you don't feel you can trust them with things that you really need to trust a confidant with and that sort of thing. Now, how do you know, like some of you ladies, I believe that a lot of us are unintentionally two-faced, okay? I have been guilty of that in the past, especially in my younger years. It's happened to me a lot, and it's made me scared. I'm never scared to like give and volunteer or share my resources or that sort of thing, but sometimes it makes me a little scared to let people into what's really going on in my head or what's really going on in my heart. And I evaluated that a bit ago and I'm like, why do I do that sometimes? And as I realized that, I'm pretty sure that it's something a lot of you go through as well. So I want to go ahead and address that now. So I want to tell one, those are you could be on the other end of this. You could be someone who finds that you get close to someone and you feel like you're really close for a little while and then they push you away and you feel like that happens a lot. Sometimes you have to say, okay, the common denominator here is me. I know that's not always the case, but it can be the case. So we have to ask ourselves, like, when I'm with my friends or when I'm with this person, am I gossiping about other people? Do I spend a ton of time complaining about my spouse? Like, I don't mean like not saying like crap's going on if it's going on, but like, do you monopolize conversations? I've been guilty of that so many times. I even tell my friends now, like, oh my gosh, if I'm talking too much, just shut me up because you matter to me, like that type of thing. But some people are really selfish and they're not self-aware and they're not just talking because they're exciting to see you. They're talking because they just love to hear themselves talk. And I'm not trying to be cruel when I say that, but I think that some people need to know that this could be why people push them away. Now, here's what I've struggled with. And I think some of you might struggle with this. And I don't seem to struggle so much with people letting me into their circle, but I do struggle with letting people into my own. I know why. I want to share that for two reasons. I want some of you to understand why that there could be things about you and your habits that keep others from, like, they kind of keep everyone at arm's distance and even more, sometimes like a room's distance away. But I also want you to be aware that it's possible that not allowing people into your core circle who not only do they deserve to be there because of their behaviors and their trustworthiness, but you guys could be a blessing to each other. So here's some examples. If you have someone who's like randomly checks on you, that person that sends you the random text, like, how are things going? Or I'm out, can I get something for you? Or someone who volunteers for others selflessly. A lot of those people, I've been one of those too. A lot of your people-pleasing friends, we kind of get a bad rap because we just don't like others to hurt. So we'll volunteer and we'll serve and everything else, but then we have a hard time letting people in. So keep your eyes out for those people pleasers, because some of them actually have a tough time letting others in. And those are going to be your loyal friends. Those are going to be the ones who are not going to go and repeat the crappy argument you just had with your spouse. They're going to be the ones who don't go and share with the neighborhood that you found drugs in your kid's closet. You know, they're not going to go and broadcast the stories you shared about your childhood trauma or some indiscretion that happened in your marriage that hurt you deeply or something like that. Only let people into that core circle, the people that you can, they're going to cherish it. They're not going to abuse it. Regardless of how old we are, it can be tempting to just want to hang with the cool guys, right? In the social media world, some of us have a little bit of a public figure persona. I think it's hilarious how I have like over 4,000 whatever quote unquote Facebook friends, but I spend so much time alone because I kind of like being alone. There's a very safe space right here. But let's keep that. Who could you add to your inner circle and who shouldn't be there in the first place? If that's something you're struggling with, that could be like one of the huge ways to start winterizing your life right now. And that's addressing the relationships that really, really matter. Okay. So I'm going to go to my next point here. All right. It's going to get more fun, less difficult here. Okay. Let's look at the core relationships that are going good, or the ones that are super important. Your spouse, even if it's a little bit struggle, it's your spouse, right? Your children, parents, siblings, best friends, those core groups of people. How can you nourish those relationships during the season, during the winter months, during the holidays? Like, do you know how awesome it is just to receive a letter these days? Like, most of us don't ever receive letters anymore, except like from people like much older. It's a nice way to nourish a relationship. I'm going to give you a good example. I'm actually going to throw myself under the bus here. I've been blessed to have the kind of mother-in-law that too few people have. She is gentle and kind to me. She doesn't badmouth me to my brother-in-law or my sister-in-law. She doesn't make me feel bad when I screw up. She has witnessed me not being the most tender, loving wife to her son, and she has never like held it against me, or she doesn't criticize my parenting or pick on my cooking or anything like that. Politically, we're on like opposite ends of the spectrum, and she doesn't try to pick fights with me and stuff like that. And I realized as I was writing this, like, I should nourish that relationship with her. I should be calling her more and asking her how she's doing. Because we have a pandemic going on, we're not getting enough opportunity to really see her because she's in a high-risk age category, and we do want to protect her with social distancing. And there are people in my church that I've recently met who I have not like an instant connection, but in the time that we're getting to know each other, I know them to be trustworthy people. They don't gossip about others. They're servant hearts, and I want to nourish those relationships. So this is going to be your easy one. This is going to be the really nice, what's the word I'm looking for? This is going to be the really nice side of winterizing your relationships, is the nourishing. It's kind of the fun part. If you're wondering a really great way to nourish your relationships, this book, I think I read it. It was still kind of a new book, and now it's totally a classic, and it's The 5 Love Languages. They actually have it for like parents of your kids and stuff like that. Even if you are totally single and don't have like a lover in your life or something like that, I guarantee you read that book and you will see a whole new way of nurturing your relationships. It does come from a Christian faith perspective. However, relationship coaches and that I know who are not Christians, even though I am one, often also recommend the book. It's just a way of expressing love and appreciation of others in the language that they receive. This is a great time to do it. All right. So now we're going to go to our whole self. So we've talked about our homes, we've talked about our relationships, and now we're going to go ahead and talk about your whole self. And your whole self is the most important part of it. Now, I wanted to go and tackle the home part first because that's the easy part, especially that whole getting a place where you can be alone and kind of work on yourself or whatever it is you need to do. What we want to be able to do is look at, are there simple ways? Well, I skipped over it again, guys. I'm messing this up. I want to turn off that ticker. Okay. This is hilarious. I'm still figuring out this freaking banners. I messed them all up. So if you watched it, I'm sorry if I missed it, if I missed any of this, or if you read things that didn't match what I was saying. So I'm going by my notes, and sometimes I'm looking at my notes and not the ticker underneath me. Okay, so the whole self. This is going to be the final area, and I'm going to try to hurry through it because this podcast is now going on over an hour. Makes for a great long drive or while you're cleaning, but it's a lot longer than most of my podcasts are. So when it comes to whole self, we're looking at your spiritual life. We're looking at your physical health, your mental health, your sense of purpose and worth. It could be that your worldview and your outlook is different than mine, but I actually would prioritize our spiritual life over everything. I know that when I am grounded in the things that I believe in, my convictions and in my faith, that it is much easier to be consistent in all those other areas I just talked about. I am a better friend. I'm a better wife. I'm a more conscientious mother. And I treat myself better when my spiritual life is stronger. Now, for me and my faith, that means I'm spending time reading my Bible. I'm spending time praying. I'm spending time connecting with other people from my church, even if we can't get together, by calling them or emailing them, and having some accountability in our spiritual growth and how we're treating ourselves as well. It could be that your faith is different, but when we are not faithfully following our faith, we will tend to compromise in areas and compromise our values and get our priorities out of whack. So I would prioritize that as a foremost side. Okay. So as I do that, I'm going to ask myself, am I living according to my spiritual values? What can I do to work on that during this time? So I'm going to give you a really good example and a hard one. Okay. In the Bible, there's a passage that says the fruit of the Spirit shows God's love in you. The fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, self-control. So I can list out those things. Am I being loving? Have I been kind? And I don't mean like, am I always kind? Am I always loving? But is my norm? Okay. So I might go opposite, man. Like, have I just been like really unkind lately? Am I like becoming incredibly impatient? Am I just out of whack on all this? Am I more impulsive? Am I more reactive and all that stuff? So I know that when I am all those opposite things, that usually my faith is, I'm not as grounded in my faith as I need to be. So I will pull back. I'll call someone from my church or a sister in faith and say, hey, you know what? I'm not really living the way I want to do. My attitudes, the way I feel grounded, not really what I need to do. I need to work on that. So like for me, accountability goes a long way, a whole long way. And then getting back to like finding that quiet place in my home where I can pray, where I could read, where maybe I write letters, reconcile relationships and that sort of thing. It just makes it much easier to live according to my faith when I ask those types of questions. And you may have different questions you're asking yourself, but I would say that would be the big one, is asking, am I living according to my spiritual values? And whether I am or whether I'm not, what can I do to improve upon that? Okay. And now we're still talking about our whole self. So I start with my spiritual health, and now it's the body I live in. Am I really living a healthy life? And what can I do to improve and maximize my health and fitness? So why do I put the word really in there? Why am I saying, am I really living a healthy life? Well, I'm going to tell you because there are many of us who, whether it's our profession, like me being the mind body life coach, maybe someone is a physical therapist, or they're a personal trainer, or they're a nutritionist, or they're the appearance of their lifestyle appears healthy. Maybe you're someone who just is naturally thin, or you are young and it's easier to show your muscularity. Appearances can be very deceiving when it comes to living a healthy life. So, living a healthy life, when it comes to our health and our fitness, it includes so much more than what we can see. What am I putting into my body? What does my sleep look like? And if I'm injured, am I addressing those injuries? If I'm healing from an injury, am I healing from that? I want to go ahead and maximize that. I'm going to go ahead and focus on what I can be doing to live this genuinely healthy life. Because if I start ignoring the unseen things, like if I'm not eating well, maybe my cholesterol is going to go higher. Maybe I'm just going to kind of feel crappy, or no pun intended after I just said crappy, but maybe my digestive tract's going to be all jacked up. Whatever that is, living a very healthy life. And frankly, the winter months, it's a great time to do it if you have more time at home to really focus on it. It's not as easy to break the habits, but it is something to look at. So now here's where I can go in my shameless plug here is, what can I do to improve and maximize my fitness? Now, if year after year, this is around the time of year that you're already planning out that like New Year resolution that, okay, at the end of the year, I'm going to ask my husband for the bike, or we're going to go to the gym, or we're going to start hiking, or you know what, this summer we're going to backpack the Appalachian Trail, and I'm going to start getting fit like as soon as it gets warm. Like, that might be the conversation you're having with yourself year after year. And what I see with clients over the past 15 years who think in that's their normal pattern, that there's a problem with it. It's not addressing the mindset. It's not addressing the habits that have kept them from living continuous healthy living. And that's why either those dreamed upon goals and dreamed upon ideas either don't happen, or they start and then we fall off the wagon. So what can you do to maximize your health and fitness? I would start off with accountability right away. If this is a recurring thing that you, year after year, you keep telling yourself, I'm going to do it eventually, or when this happens, I'm going to do that. Go ahead and start right now. I actually have a coaching program. It's a 12-week coaching journal. I take you through, we actually break down the sabotaging mindset, habits, and thinking things that might keep you from getting off of the constant weight gain, weight loss roller coaster. Okay. There are other accountability groups. Maybe Weight Watchers is your thing or something like that. But what can you do to maximize it? First of all, if this is a recurring theme year after year, get some accountability, some external help. A nutrition coach, a personal trainer, a life coach. I feel so blessed to have all of those titles, but some might just need one or something like that. It's okay. Get help. You don't have to suffer alone. Now, it could be that you've just kind of temporarily fallen off the wagon a little bit, that your norm is actually to be pretty active and pretty healthy. Just make up your mind and do it, my friend. Like, we address like getting the kitchen in order, getting a healthy place and a place to work out in order. Start taking the little steps. I use a thing, I call it the 2 things, where every week we make 2 adjustments every week. So that could be your thing, that you're going to go ahead and this week it's going to be, I'm going to drink the water and I'm going to get the sleep I need. And then next week it's going to be like, I'm going to burn X number of calories a day, and I'm going to like park further away from the office if you do that. Or next week, I'm going to order my groceries to be delivered, because if I go to the grocery store, I won't have time to work out. Like, start making little adjustments, little changes in your schedule and your routine so that you can be a little closer to where you are. If you make 2 small changes every week, man, by the end of the year, you've made well over 100 changes. I have found that when I start with a couple of changes, it's really easy to add. And then maybe, okay, you know what, I'm committing to 2, but I'm going to try 3. And it gets easier. It gets easier as you go. Okay. So since we're going ahead now and we're focusing on whole life, not only as a personal trainer, life coach, nutrition coach, for the past, let's see, how long has it been? It's about 4.5 years now. I could be wrong. Let me think. uh, it's actually 5 years. I can't believe it's been that long. Holy cow. Since about the winter of 2015, that was when I first embarked upon my mental health advocacy work. I did not realize I had a head knowledge, but not a personal experiential knowledge of how important addressing mental health issues are to my whole health. So that's why this topic is the one I'm going to go ahead and hit on. I won't stay on it very long, but I'm going to make sure I don't skip it. And I know now that I've spent the years with mental health advocacy, I know that virtually all of us know someone who has been diagnosed with a mental health condition. And I don't mean just that we know someone who's been diagnosed, but we just don't know that they've been diagnosed. No, most of us know someone who's been diagnosed and we know that they've been diagnosed. And for those of you who don't, maybe that's not your situation, I want you to know you know someone with a mental health condition. If you know me and you don't think you know anyone, then let me go ahead and let you know. I've been super blessed to have overcome a long battle with depression. I am doing very well with treatment for ADHD and PTSD. We have some belief that my ADHD could be directly related to childhood trauma. Just being forced to compartmentalize things in a certain way and not be able to discuss important things, to take on tasks and things like that. The executive function side of my brain, it didn't function as well as it appeared to the outside world. Internally, I was one of those people who was always losing things and forgetting things. And I don't mean things that don't matter. I mean things that really do matter and things that matter to me. So it could have come across as if I was like an airhead or I didn't care or something like that. And what a joy it is to have been treated for years now by this and to have done so well, because it's not just helped me with my executive function, like in making decisions and that type of thing, but it's helped me overcome adversity where prior to treatment for both ADHD and PTSD, when life would kick me in the butt, I mean, I would go down, I would crash, I would hide under the covers. I couldn't function. And now I'm able to bounce right back up pretty much and say, okay, you know what? Adversity hit. I'm going to hit the ground running and I'm going to move forward. I'm going to keep going because on top of the executive function, I have the ability for control of my emotions and how I respond and react to things. I know I'm able to adequately discern whether I screwed something up, which I do sometimes, or whether I got screwed, like in a circumstance. Prior to that, I didn't really allow myself the opportunity to break down what was happening in my life. So I kind of just let life happen to me. I let people happen to me, like that type of thing. So that's important to know. I have a couple of friends who have children with bipolar disorder, and it is absolutely devastating at times if it's not treated. Most of the time before treatment happens, emergencies are going on and that type of thing. So my friend, you might be someone with bipolar disorder. My heart goes out to you. And before these winter months, before these difficult holiday seasons, before potential snow or lockdowns happen, I want to encourage you, if you haven't already, to go ahead and have those discussions with your mental health provider and let them know, it's time just to have a re-eval, like a checkup. When our babies were growing up, we made sure they went to all their well baby and their well child visits. When we were carrying children, if we were pregnant, we wanted to make every appointment that we had to. If your eye's getting kind of funky and you're not seeing things, you go to the eye doctor. But with mental health, we want you to go ahead and make sure that you're being evaluated regularly, that if you're on medications, if you need medications, that they are adjusted appropriately. If you need to be weaned off, that you're not just cold turkey quitting and that type of thing. We want to go ahead and know that that's being addressed. Now, the other side of that mental health thing is that the people that you love the most need to know what your diagnoses are. after a pretty significant event happened in my life, I learned that someone, I don't want to, I don't want to like throw someone under the bus, but I had learned that I had learned that someone close to me had had a pretty serious mental health diagnosis, and I didn't know. Sorry, my husband. If you guys are looking and you see me looking over, my husband's telling me I have 5 minutes. I got to hurry up here. Um, that someone that I should have known had something, that someone had a very specific and intense mental health diagnosis that I never knew. And I always had all of these questions. So I'd be like, oh, maybe there's something wrong with me that they behave this way, or what's wrong with them, or I don't want to deal with them. Having an answer to what your loved one is going through is really important. So if you have a diagnosis, I want you to go ahead and make a plan now to sit with those that love you the most and that you love the most, and let them know what your diagnoses are. Give them some insight on what your treatment plans are and things like that. Because going into the holidays, and because going into potential lockdowns, depending on where you live, if you live in a place where it snows a lot and you might get snowed in, these are important things for your loved ones to know, and they're important things for you to address. So please do not forget to address those. Do not put it off. This is all part of taking advantage of winterizing your life and making sure that your winter months, these holiday months, don't have to be so miserable at all, really, if we address. Okay, and now finally, my husband's going to be really glad that I'm ending on this note, okay? On that whole self, we're going to look at yourself professionally, if you're a student, academically, if you have some skill sets you need to fine tune, getting some coaching, mentoring, or something like that. Am I where I want to be as a spouse, as a friend, as a parent, as a professional, or as a student? This is a nice time to take if you are currently unemployed, if you've been furloughed, if you're just home a lot more, to go ahead and start fine-tuning those areas where you can do the work that you need to do so that you could be where you want to be. I hope this has all been helpful as far as winterizing your life. I know that that's kind of a funny sounding topic. However, I think I'm going to go ahead. I'm dealing with this ticker again. Sorry. I want to turn it off. I don't want to show it. So I just like scrolled up like way too much. So I'm going to click hide on that. Okay. That was kind of a weird moment if you were watching that just now. And if you're listening later, sorry about that. I might have to change how to, I'm not going to do those like banner sliding ticking since I don't have someone helping me run this. Okay. So in closing, this whole podcast, the longest I've ever done. I didn't actually think I would get over an hour podcast, but then here I am, even though I had an outline and stuck with it. Winterizing your life. I want you to focus on that because for most of us, we have either heard that others have had the hardest year of their lives in 2020. And I know that really, you might be one of those. And maybe you haven't had it that tough, or you're expecting maybe not. We just don't know what the future holds. And we don't want those holiday seasons and those winter months to kind of catch us off guard. So I absolutely want you to make sure that as you're winterizing your life, that you take the steps to make sure your home life, your relationships, that your whole self, that you've prioritized those to make them as healthy as you possibly can. Thanks again to all of you who did tune in and listen to the Your Mind, Body, Life podcast. Let me know if there is anything I can help you with, encourage you with, especially if it is with your fitness and health. I am Gretchen, your Mind, Body, Life coach. And until next time, take care. You are worth all of the effort it takes to be the person you want to be and live the life you want to live. Bye.